Good morning, friends. Prepared Suburbanite back at you. Well, today is another gloomy, rainy day. We got about 2 inches of rain overnight, and this afternoon we've got the chance, anyway, level 2 chance, whatever that means, of severe thunderstorms and potential slim for a tornado. So when this front goes through this afternoon, keep your hats on. That's all I can say. So yesterday I stumbled on an article that really piqued my interest, and I'll put a link to it down in the comments if you want to go read it yourself. But it came from the AskAPrepper.com website, and it's entitled 9 Signs You Might Be on FEMA's List. And it's written by Eugene P. That's all I know. I don't always agree with everything that I read, and I try to take a skeptical look at things, but 9 signs I might be, or we might be, on FEMA's list. Well, let's get into some detail. So the whole crux of the matter here in the theme of this particular article, and he starts it off by saying FEMA's one of the only organizations that's empowered by law. I'm not sure that's the exact terminology he used, but they're one of the few agencies that's empowered by law to confiscate stuff, supplies, so that they can be redistributed. And I did some checking on that, and there's sort of a truth buried in there, but it's not 100% accurate, I don't think. I believe what the author was trying to say is back in March of 2012, Barack Obama signed Executive Order 13603. And I've talked about this a long time ago. It's called the National Defense Resources Preparedness Act order. It's an executive order, and it enables the federal government to confiscate and redistribute potable water, food, and whatever resources are necessary to protect the United States during a state of emergency. And I suppose that the federal government can declare a state of emergency after 2 or 3 inches of snow. If some of our infrastructure does go down. So it's theoretically possible that this is a real possibility. But the thing that really struck me is how pervasive the federal government and potentially FEMA and some of the other 3 or 4 letter word agencies, what they are and what kind of data they have available to them, or they can secure that data. So here are the 9 signs that Eugene P. has detailed in this article. Number 1, that you live in a place with a high occurrence of natural disasters or are closer to critical infrastructure. So it's very possible that there could be like red lines drawn around certain critical areas, and FEMA could be monitoring activity in those areas just in case there's some sort of national emergency declaration or to be declared, but they wanted to be ahead of the game, so maybe they are redlining certain areas in the country. And if you happen to find yourself in one of those areas, then the rest of the article could be pretty helpful. Number 2, you've recently bought survival food. Now, depends on the method of payment, but if you ordered it from one of the online survival food companies, it's very possible that you used a credit card, and your credit card data may be available to the federal government to find out what you're spending your money on. And if they find that you've bought a large quantity of survival food, that could put you on the list for further monitoring. That you've bought huge amounts of emergency supplies, things like hand crank radios, first aid kits, fuel in large quantities, water that you may be able to store for longer periods of time, quantities of water. So 25 or 50 cases of the packages of the 16.9 ounce bottles of plastic bottles of water. That could trigger somebody in the federal government to take a good close look at what you may have. That you've purchased guns and ammo. Well, it happens from time to time that most of us will purchase those kinds of things. I know I do pick it up from time to time to replenish certain supplies after I go to the local range and things like that. So, but I think the trigger would be large quantities. And not sure how they're going to define that, but we'll have to see. So be aware that if you're using any kind of electronic credit card, debit card transactions, that the federal government may have access to that kind of information. And if they see that kind of stuff popping up and you're in that red line neighborhood, you could be on their list. Your online searches may be subject to being watched. If you're looking for SHTF articles, if you're looking about how to do water catchment or rainwater catchment supplies and things, that may serve as a trigger for them to put you on their list. That you've bought gold or silver and you used a credit card to do that, then it's very possible that that could also be a trigger for you ending up on a FEMA type list that they would research when the time is right. You have frequent and large withdrawals of cash. Now that can happen. I know that it's very difficult for me to get to where I do the banking. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's very inconvenient. But there's an ATM right down the street, and we can stop in there, but we're limited to, I think, $300 per transaction. So if you you wanted to have an extra $1,000 around, you'd have to make multiple trips to that ATM. And that might serve as a trigger if FEMA's looking at those kinds of transactions through your bank. So you might end up on their list. That you've bought a generator, whether it's a solar generator, or gas-powered generator, inversion type generator. That is a pretty sure sign that you may be preparing for something that they don't necessarily want you to be prepared for. And that may put you on a list. This one kind of gets into the number 9 on the list, kind of gets us into the OPSEC kind of a thing. It's where you really don't talk about what you've got on hand. And yeah, I know I'm on YouTube, and I do talk about the kinds of things that we do here, so I'm probably on the list, and they could be monitoring you talking about what you've got prepared for, even if you're just talking to your neighbors or talking to people that you know at your church or social clubs or wherever you may be. So that can be pretty disturbing if you realize that you might be on FEMA's list. Further research into this tells me that the jump to conclusion, the jump to confusion in this is that the federal government would have to enact martial law, or at least a declaration of a substantial emergency type situation that would allow any of the 3 and 4 letter federal agencies to come in and confiscate goods, prepping supplies, food, water, anything, generators that you may have. It's very possible that that could happen. And if you've been tracked by these kinds of activities, then your stuff is going to be in jeopardy. So what can you do about it? Well, try not to buy in bulk, and try not to use a credit card to do that. If you can, use cash. And that gets pretty difficult when you're trying to order stuff online. But if you don't have any place in your immediate area that you can go and pick up those kinds of supplies, emergency essentials, Wise Foods, Augustin Farms, nutrient survival, you're going to need to be using some sort of a credit card and or a debit card in order for that transaction to come, and that could leave you vulnerable to being placed on a list. So that's about the only good advice that I could really find out there based on my research. Like to hear what you folks may be thinking about after you've heard that you might be on a list to have your prepping supplies, your survival goods, your water, your food, your generators potentially confiscated if we end up in some sort of a dire situation and martial law is declared, or some sort of huge emergency declaration is enacted by the federal government. They do have the authority and they do have the power to come and confiscate for the general good, the general welfare, but there has to be some due process there. And we'll have to see how that's going to play out. I don't trust them. I don't think they're going to follow all the rules. I think they'll just come knock on doors or break in and take whatever they want, whenever they want it, and there you go. I wish I had better news on this one. This is the Prepared Suburbanite reminding you not to use your credit cards to buy your food preps, and be prepared always. I'll see y'all on the next video.